Hi everyone, my name is Dimuthu and I'm undertaking a PhD project at the University of Tasmania, Australia. My project is based along the East Coast region of Australia's island state of Tasmania, and it primarily focuses on place attachment and its influence on individual climate change adaptation actions. As part of this work, I collected spatial map-based data on place attachment and landscape values along the study region to understand the distribution and to explore how this distribution relates to adaptation behaviors. In this presentation, I will demonstrate the value of incorporating place attachment in place-based conservation planning and how spatial data on landscape values and place attachments can be measured and used to inform place-based planning outcomes. I'll also introduce a tool that we developed to help collect this type of data. The social dimensions, or the human dimensions of conservation, is now widely recognized as an important factor in the success of conservation practice and outcomes. Within this field of scholarship, place attachment is reported to have a strong correlation with environmental behavior. Place attachment specifically refers to emotional bonds that one might form with places. It encapsulates the strength and the nature of a person's attachment to a place. This connection to place can influence us both positively or negatively. Love of place can trigger place protective intentions in one place, while in another area, people might exhibit maladaptations or misbehaviors because of their historical interactions in that place. This is why it's important to have a clear understanding of place attachment within a local region. It's especially important when undertaking place-based conservation. The foundational premise of place-based conservation is that conservation needs to be adapted to suit the needs and systems and biophysical factors of a region, as these factors are distinctive to each area. This same premise supports the need to understand place attachments within a specific area, so that there's also a clear understanding of sociocultural aspects of that area. One of the primary critiques for place attachment research and conservation planning and natural resource management has been the inability to translate research findings into rational management decision models. It's difficult to translate place attachment measures into more than just a list of names or generalized scale-based measures. Map-based spatially explicit data on place attachment can, however, provide an operational bridge or pathway to improve planning and management by assessing and mapping the potential risk to local community or visitor place attachments. Public participatory GIS provides a means of collecting social data that can readily support integration into spatial planning. It can identify spatially explicit information for a range of planning needs, such as place values, management preferences, ecosystem services, etc. So recording social data, or in this case, place attachment data in a spatially explicit manner, facilitates integration with existing biophysical data layers to support decision-making support systems. Researchers Greg Brown and Christopher Raymond developed a methodology to collect place attachment data that uses landscape values as a proxy measure and includes special places as a map-based place attachment measure. This method uses place attachment indices generated from mapped landscape values in special places to identify locations with high or low relative place attachment. Following their methodology, we developed a platform that we are calling the Landscape Values Mapping Platform. This is a screenshot of the mapping interface. This is used to collect PPGIS data. And we'll show you some of the functions of this platform later. These place attachment maps that can be produced from this platform can provide corresponding risk indices associated with potential changes, including land use changes or climate change impacts. Place attachment maps can essentially display the potential negative consequences that may arise from introducing changes to the area. For example, introducing further environmental restrictions to a recreational area. So using the LVMP, I conducted a survey along the east coast of Tasmania that asked individuals who lived in this area to map places that they value along the study region based on a range of predefined landscape value typologies, and to mark the places that are special to them. These are three of the value hotspot maps that were produced, and they were produced using kernel density estimates on ArcMap. This shows aesthetic landscape value densities, recreational values, and then social values here. This is the study area within this boundary, and there are 2 local government areas included. So there's Breakaday at the top and Glamorgan Spring Bay at the bottom. Just for a bit of background, this region is one of Tasmania's most popular inter and intra-tourist destinations, and it's experiencing quite a lot of exponential growth in tourism and population growth as well. It has relatively pristine terrestrial and coastal ecosystems, and it's one of the reasons why it's so popular. And it consists a very large amount of private nature reserves and publicly owned protected areas. Some of the most significant publicly owned reserves in the area indicated in the map using these diagonal lines, as you can see. So clustering of densities were evident in nearly all of the hotspot maps, and statistical analyses that we conducted showed that nearly all of the landscape values and special places showed significant clusterings, with the exception of intrinsic, life-sustaining, and spiritual values, which were very randomly distributed. Clustering generally occurred along the coastline and near or close to well-known protected areas. And clusterings for social and economic values occurred close to townships. So these are some of the main towns along the region. As a map-based measure of place attachment, we asked respondents to mark between 1 to 6 special places on the map. These are places that hold special meaning to them. Here's a map of the special place hotspots just on the right, and you can see that there are similar clustering patterns between special place hotspots and the landscape value hotspots in the previous slides. This is true of nearly all of the landscape value hotspot maps as well. We conducted correlation analyses between special place densities and all of the landscape value densities, and these found a significant positive correlation between almost all of the landscape values and special places. Places associated with aesthetic, intrinsic, and recreational values show the strongest correlation with special places. A regression of landscape value densities with place attachment densities was also undertaken, and it found that 3 of the 11 landscape values emerged as statistically significant predictive variables for place attachment. These were aesthetic, recreation, and social values. Based on where clustering occur on the maps, this suggests that to the local population, the aesthetic and recreational values of the coastline and the terrestrial places, and the social values associated with local hubs are the most important factors when forming an attachment to place. Therefore, changes that could threaten these values runs the risk of reducing attachment and causing conflict and reducing support for environmental actions. This information provides valuable insight into the sociocultural landscape of the East Coast region. This data and further analyses can be shared with decision makers, including local governments and NRM managers, to help inform future conservation and environmental planning, policy development, and communication in the area. Specifically, the data shows that place-based environmental planning will need to consider the recreational value of places. For instance, as an anecdotal example, there's a lot of growth or a large amount of tourism activity occurring in the north of the study region, and the misuse by tourists has led to beloved campsites and trails being shut down. And the community in general is very anti-tourist because of the degradation of natural places and beaches, but they don't support environmental actions at the same time because it reduces their access to these places as well. I've even had a few comments in the survey where individuals are willing to pay a much higher fees for campsites so that traffic may reduce and the campsites can remain open. The significant clustering seen in spatial distributions of points can also provide opportunities for future conservation efforts and suggest that there is support for such efforts as well. Again, I did receive quite a few comments that asked for increased protection to address the growing tourism activity. So as a community, it appears that people in this region are quite supportive of environmental actions with community values and conservation values being aligned. This can help strengthen communication and engagement with stakeholders and can also reinforce policy planning and development around environmental efforts. This type of data is also very useful in conjunction with other social data. For instance, instance, my research also asked individuals to map their climate risk perspectives, and Raymond and Brown have conducted similar studies in other parts of Australia that asked the community of their development preferences so that it can inform marine spatial planning. So while map-based measures of place attachment provide a demonstrable advantage over scale-based measures as a practical solution, collecting map-based data is quite difficult. There are very high costs involved with available tools that can collect this kind of data, and building a platform for this function takes time and money as well, speaking from experience. We developed this platform to help facilitate reliable collection of landscape values and place attachment information to aid place-based planning efforts. Our platform is available to anyone who would like to undertake this type of research. And what we have created is basically an application that can be uploaded onto a web domain. It's highly adaptable to your research needs, and using this, I've administered a rather long survey that asked a range of quantitative survey questions about an individual's environmental behaviors, their adaptation actions, and their climate change perspectives. And these questions were placed alongside the mapping PPGIS component so that I can collect paired data. You can use the platform in a similar way, incorporating your own survey structure. It's not entirely user-friendly on the side of the researcher, as currently available mapping survey tools are. This is because this kind of development is very costly, and it's one of the reasons that the available tools incur such high costs. We are instead working towards developing a setup guide that will instruct researchers on how they can change questions and other features, and it's very intuitive and will simply involve copying and pasting your own questions and responses and changes to certain features such as zoom levels onto the application's script. So these are some of the screenshots of the mapping interface and how the questions appear. This is just mapping instructions that appear when you click on help. This is what the mapping interface looks like, and you have landscape values here, and definitions for each of the categories will pop up when you hover over them. You can have a pop-up box that asks for comments when you mark a place, and this is just an example of a quantitative question. So you can specify what the study region is and include a boundary to ensure that points are mapped within the study area. And individual responses get saved in real time onto an Excel database so that it's ready for analysis at any point. I've included a YouTube link at the bottom here that is just a instructional video that I created for the survey. And it'll just give you an idea of what the platform looks like. And then there's also a survey test link to my survey that'll just allow you to play around with it a little bit and see how everything functions. We're still working on the setup guide, but if anyone is interested in collecting place attachment information in the near future, please do get in touch, and I can help with getting it set up for you with the help of our web developer, Stuart Allen. Thank you very much for listening. I have a few references for you, and these are the links again if you wanted to use them. Thank you.